The most dangerous-looking man in the room turned out to be the only one with a heart, and everyone in that diner had to watch it happen before they believed it. His name was Marcus, big guy. Long gray hair pulled back, a leather vest covered in patches that told you he had lived. A life most people only see in movies, tattoos running all the way up both arms, the kind of man that makes a whole restaurant go quiet the second he walks through the door. And that is exactly what happened the afternoon he walked into Desert Star Diner. It was a Tuesday, cold outside, rain hitting the windows. The kind of day where everyone just wants to eat their food and go home. There were maybe 15, 20 people inside. A couple of truckers at the counter, a family in the corner booth, a few people on their lunch breaks, heads down, scrolling their phones. And then the door opened. Marcus walked in and you could feel it. That shift in the air. People looked up. People looked away. A woman pulled her purse a little closer. A man sitting near the door leaned over and whispered something to the person next to him. The waitress at the counter forced a smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. Nobody wanted trouble, and to them Marcus looked like trouble. He didn't seem to notice, or maybe he did and had just stopped caring a long time ago. He walked to an empty booth near the window, sat down heavy like a man carrying weight he'd been carrying for years, and picked up the menu without saying a word to anyone. That is when he saw her, an old woman, sitting alone 2 booths away. White hair, thin coat, a handbag sitting on the seat next to her like a companion. She was staring at her coffee cup, not drinking it, just staring. Her hands were wrapped around it like she was trying to hold on to something, warm in a world that had gone cold on her. She looked like someone who used to have a full life, a home full of noise and kids and holiday dinners, and now she was sitting alone in a diner on a Tuesday afternoon, and nobody was coming. Marcus watched her for a moment. Then he looked back at his menu. The waitress came, took his order, left. He sat there quietly. Outside, the rain got heavier. The family in the corner got loud. For a second, when the little kid knocked over a drink, then went quiet again. And then the old woman looked up. She looked right at Marcus. Now, most people, when they accidentally make eye contact with someone they're a little afraid of, they look away fast. But she didn't. She looked at him like she was seeing something different from what everyone else was seeing, like she was reading a page that the rest of the room had skipped over. She sat there for a second. Then slowly, carefully, she picked up her handbag, stood up, and walked over to his booth. The whole diner noticed. She stopped at the edge of his table and said, quietly, almost in a whisper, "I'm sorry to bother you, but would you sit with me, just for a little while? Pretend you're my son." The room went still. Marcus looked up at her. He didn't say anything right away. He just looked at this old woman standing there, her hands shaking a little, her eyes tired but not embarrassed. She had asked for what she needed. That takes courage most people don't have. And then Marcus did something nobody in that diner expected. He slid out of his booth, picked up his coffee, and walked over to her table and sat down across from her. Just like that. No big speech. No hesitation once he decided. He just moved. The waitress stood frozen near the counter. One of the truckers turned on his stool to watch. The woman who had pulled her purse close, she let it go. Marcus set his coffee down and looked at the old woman and said, "What's your name?" She told him. Dorothy. Her name was Dorothy. And they talked. Not just small talk either. Real conversation. Dorothy told him about her son, James. How he used to take her to diners just like this one every Sunday. How he always ordered the same thing, black coffee and a BLT, no matter what else was on the menu. How he passed away 2 years ago. A heart attack at 53, no warning, no goodbye. She told Marcus that some days the quiet in her house got so loud it felt like it was pressing down on her chest. That she drove to this diner sometimes just to be around people, even strangers, because strangers at least didn't feel sorry for her the way family did. Marcus listened to all of it, every word. He didn't check his phone. He didn't look around the room. He just listened like what she was saying was the most important thing he had heard in a long time, because maybe it was. See, here's the thing about Marcus that the people in that diner didn't know, the thing hidden underneath the leather and the patches and the reputation. Marcus had lost his mother 3 years before that Tuesday afternoon. She had gotten sick fast, and he had been on the road when it happened, and he didn't make it back in time. He carried that with him every single day, a weight that never got lighter, just more familiar. So when Dorothy sat down across from him and started talking about her son, Marcus wasn't just being polite. He understood her in a way that most people in that room never could have. At one point, Dorothy laughed, a real laugh, the kind that comes out surprised, like it caught her off guard. Marcus had said something about the coffee, and she laughed, and it was the best sound in the whole diner at that moment. People were still watching, but differently now. Not with fear or suspicion, with something quieter, something closer to shame, if you want to be honest about it. Because here was a man that every single person in that building had judged the second he walked through the door. A man they had whispered about, avoided, written off before he ever opened his mouth. And he was the one sitting with a lonely old woman who just needed to not feel invisible for one afternoon. He was the one who moved. Nobody else had. Not the family, not the guys on their lunch break, not the waitress who had smiled that empty smile. Just Marcus, the man everyone was afraid of. They sat together for almost an hour. When Dorothy's food came, Marcus asked the waitress to bring it to his table so Dorothy didn't have to eat alone. He paid for her meal too, quietly, without making a big deal of it. When she found out, she tried to argue, and he just shook his head and said, "Let me do this." When it was time for her to go, Dorothy stood up slowly, and Marcus stood up with her. She looked up at him. He was a foot taller than her at least, and she put one small hand on the side of his face the way a mother does. And she said, "You remind me of him." He had a good heart too. People just didn't always see it. Marcus didn't say anything. He just covered her hand with his for a second and nodded. She walked out of the diner. Marcus sat back down. He finished his coffee alone, looking out the window at the rain. The diner was different after that. Quieter, but not in an uncomfortable way. In the way a room gets quiet after something real happens inside it. One of the truckers nodded at Marcus on his way out. The waitress refilled his coffee without him asking and said thank you, and meant it. Here is what that afternoon in Desert Star Diner was really about. It was not about a biker doing something surprising. It was about how fast we decide who someone is before we ever give them a chance to show us. We see the leather, we move our purse. We see the tattoos, we whisper. We build the whole story in our head in 3 seconds, and then we act on a story we made up. And while we are busy doing that, the person we judged is already sitting down with the loneliest woman in the room, making her laugh for the first time in weeks. Marcus didn't do what he did because someone was watching. He did it because an old woman asked him to, and because somewhere, inside that big quiet man was someone who knew exactly what it felt like to lose the person you loved most. Kindness does not care what you look like. It does not check your clothes or your past or what people say about you when you leave the room. It just shows up, quietly, without needing applause. And sometimes the person everyone avoids is the only one brave enough to give it. That video playing on your screen right now, trust me, you don't want to skip it.